Since you'll probably never get married, Amy, why don't you just enjoy looking at me in my wedding dress? Despite being her real sister, Linda said such heartless things without a care. I had been keeping my distance to live peacefully, but then something unbelievable happened. Suddenly, my husband Mike declared he wanted a divorce. A year later, to my shock, an invitation to his wedding arrived. How much more does he plan to mock me? I got custody of the children when we divorced. My daughter Emma and my son Jack are kind, gentle, and incredibly smart. I'm so proud of them. But then, if I remarry, please let me take the kids. The divorce was all because of Mike's selfishness to begin with. Trembling with anger, my children told me, "Don't worry. Leave it to us. Just wait at home and relax." They had a mischievous look on their faces as they went to the wedding. My name is Amy Johnson. I turned 53 this year. Last year, my husband Mike said he couldn't live with me anymore, and we separated. It was all so sudden. I thought our marriage was going well. It was like a bolt out of the blue. What did I do wrong? Did I unknowingly cause Mike trouble? Since that day, I've been tormented with worry and pain. It even made my menopause symptoms worse. Mike, for years my senior, and I met at work. I was an office assistant supporting Mike, a salesperson. That led us to getting married. Mike is an elite, with a lot of experience working abroad. Now, he's a busy sales director. I quit my job soon after we got married. To support Mike and take care of the home. That was Mike's wish. I spent every day concerned about Mike's health. On his days off, I made sure he could rest at home. We were blessed with 2 children. Our daughter Emma works in research at a top company. Our son Jack went to a top university. And plans to take the bar exam. All this happened amidst the sudden talk of divorce. I asked Mike over and over again. Why? I need to know the reason for the divorce. But Mike stubbornly refused, saying, "I can't tell you that. That's not fair." "It's ridiculous," I insisted. I couldn't accept it without knowing. But he just replied, annoyed. "Isn't irreconcilable differences a good enough reason?" I was deeply disappointed. I couldn't believe the man I trusted and loved could be so cold. After nearly 30 years of marriage, what had I been seeing in him? My children were also appalled by this whole situation. They must have felt that talking was useless. They encouraged me to proceed with the divorce. And so, Mike packed his things and left our home. I stayed in the house with our children. This incident occurred about 6 months before our divorce. "Mom, today I saw Dad and Aunt Linda together." One day, Emma came home and told me this. I was startled and stopped chopping vegetables. Linda is my only sister. She recently moved to an apartment near our neighborhood. She came to greet us once, but I remembered feeling gloomy at the time. Instead of a lively conversation, I only managed a distant attitude. My sister left hastily. I thought it was odd for her to visit. Just the 2 of us sisters. But we never got along, even when we were kids. I disliked my sister. I'm pretty sure she hated me too. Despite being related by blood, we were completely different types of people. My sister had been married and divorced several times. She's currently single. I always thought it was despicable how she changed her attitude depending on the person. That's why, even though we lived close by, there was no interaction between us. In fact, I found it creepy that she wanted to live near me without any apparent reason. I had a bad feeling about this. And now with this story of Mike and my sister. My heart was in turmoil. My sister had always been selfish and mean since we were kids. She always made me cry. And she was cunning about her meanness and bullying, doing it in a way that adults couldn't notice. So, when I cried, it looked like I was the one causing trouble for her. On those occasions, in front of the adults, my sister would exaggerate comforting me. All to be praised as a good sister. For instance, there was this incident. It was Christmas, right after I started elementary school. Our relatives gave us presents. They were dolls of a popular animated character. My sister got the character with black hair and a black dress. A tomboyish, spirited young girl. And I got the one with blonde hair and a pink dress. Among the children, the character with the pink dress was definitely the most popular. I was thrilled, my eyes sparkling with joy. But it seemed my sister decided she liked mine better as soon as she saw it. While the adults were busy chatting and heading to the living room, My sister reached out to me. Let me see that for a second. Ignoring my protest, she grabbed my doll. There was an unpleasant sound. The pink dress was torn apart. The glittering dress, delicately made with lace and sequins, which I had been admiring, was ruined in an instant. I was frozen in shock. Then I burst into tears, crying loudly. The adults nearby heard my cry. What happened? They asked in surprise. Then my sister, pretending nothing was wrong, stroked my head. Amy broke her doll's dress, poor thing. I'll give her mine. The adults were completely fooled by my sister's act. Everyone praised her, saying how kind she was. Meanwhile, I was scolded by our parents for not taking care of my present. There, in front of everyone, my sister handed me the doll with the black dress. I had no choice but to accept it in front of all those people. I was even made to thank her. My sister just smirked. Later, a brand new doll with a pink dress arrived at our house. It was given to my sister. Look, isn't it nice? She said, flaunting it to me repeatedly. It should have been my doll. This kind of thing happened often. Living with my sister became a major stress. She always seemed to enjoy making me suffer. I hoped she wasn't plotting anything. I was filled with anxiety. My sister, Linda, hardly studied in middle and high school and just hung out with her friends. She was always out at night with her frivolous friends, constantly worrying our parents. I'm not cut out for studying. I'd rather do fun things that I can only do now, she would say, looking at me as if mocking. Because Linda caused so much worry to our parents, I tried hard to be a conscientious, top-performing student. I was in middle school at the time. My grades were good, and I was chosen as a class representative. I hate to say it myself, but I had a lot of trust from the teachers at school. People who knew my sister were often surprised. Are you really Linda's sister? They would ask. Our parents sighed. It wasn't just that she didn't study. She would loiter for hours in front of Walmart with her dubious friends. Her troublesome behavior often led to calls to the police, and she was frequently picked up wandering the streets late at night. Our parents were always troubled and looked gloomy. But Linda didn't care. In fact, she said this with great confidence. One day I'll marry rich and everyone will thank me. In truth, my sister Linda was somewhat pretty. Not like a celebrity, but enough to turn heads on the street sometimes. But in my opinion, Linda was most attractive when she was in elementary school. Once she entered middle school, Linda began to go out at night. In high school, she started smoking secretly. She wore makeup to school even though it was forbidden, using cheap cosmetics. This caused her skin to deteriorate visibly, and her hair lost its luster. She was the only one who didn't notice these changes. She still believed she was as beautiful and cute as ever. Unfortunately, her condition worsened once she started drinking alcohol. So, everyone around her thought the idea of her marrying rich was far-fetched. It was during my first year of high school. I had my first boyfriend. We were on a date at a fast food restaurant when Linda happened to pass by. She approached us, smiling like someone else entirely. Amy, is this your friend? Introduce him to your big sister. My boyfriend was surprised to see Linda. But I was even more shocked. I braced myself, feeling uneasy. My unsuspecting boyfriend introduced himself. Oh, really? You are a friend from the same school? Please take good care of my little Amy. Linda kept smiling at my boyfriend the entire time. He must have thought we were close sisters. I stood up, saying we were going to a movie. I wanted to get away from my sister as quickly as possible. But this turned out to be a huge mistake. Linda feigned surprise and said, "Wow, what a coincidence. I wanted to see that movie too." She planned to intrude on our date. What? I hadn't expected her to go that far. I was about to say no, but my boyfriend, trying to be considerate, said, "Since we're all here, let's watch it together." I couldn't believe it. It was a movie I had been looking forward to. Seeing my displeasure, Linda switched tactics. But Amy might find it bothersome if I join. She exaggerated a disappointed look. I thought it wasn't just bothersome, it was outrageous. However, my boyfriend seemed to sympathize with Linda. I didn't want to appear unpleasant in front of my boyfriend. So I ended up saying, "It's okay." That movie date was the worst. I couldn't focus on the film at all. And somehow, my boyfriend ended up seated between us sisters. In the darkness, Linda had apparently held his hand. I was completely unaware of it. About 2 weeks later, my boyfriend broke up with me. The reason was that he had found someone he liked. I immediately knew who it was. It was Linda. Linda played with my ex-boyfriend for a bit and then quickly discarded him. Later, I heard that he became so shocked that he developed a fear of women. I confronted my sister about it. "Why would you steal someone's boyfriend? That's horrible." She looked at me nonchalantly. "I didn't steal anyone. Your boyfriend confessed to me on his own." I was furious. I shouted, "I know what you did. You seduced him by holding his hand during the movie. And then you just dumped him like that. He's developed a fear of women because of you." Linda burst out laughing. "I don't keep track of such things. I was just annoyed seeing you so happy." "Serves you right." She said it with a triumphant look, looking down on me. "Anyway, Amy, you're too presumptuous to even have a boyfriend. How could she, my own sister, say such cruel things?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "Why do you always do such horrible things to me? What do you have against me?" I couldn't help but ask the question that had always bothered me. "Because you're my sister, maybe? I can't stand the thought of you being happier than me." That day, I realized that I would never understand my sister. About a month after my husband Mike left, Linda suddenly visited me. I knew immediately why she was there. To gossip about my divorce. "How are you doing, Amy?" She came over, trying to be friendly, putting her hand on my shoulder. It was creepy. "What do you want?" Linda feigned being a bit upset. "You're being so cold." Then, she expressed an interest in seeing my children, whom she had never cared about before. "How are Emma and Jack?" I was dumbfounded. She didn't seem to know that a college student like Jack and a working adult like Emma wouldn't be home on a weekday afternoon. Perhaps it's not surprising, given that Linda, having been married 3 times and divorced twice, never had children of her own. It can't be helped, I guess. They're both obviously at school and work. My sister, looking bored, replied, "Ah, right." It seemed like she really had something to discuss with the kids. Without being invited, she just sat down on the sofa. Then she started talking out of the blue. "Amy, you just got divorced and, well, it looks like I'm headed that way too." I thought to myself, not this again. But she can do whatever she wants. It's not like it has anything to do with me. I never even met any of her previous husbands. Linda's first marriage was, just as she said, to a real catch. He was a pilot for an airline, believe it or not. I don't know how they met, but they seemed to be really in love. I can't count how many times she bragged about it back then. "Since you will probably never get married, why don't you just enjoy looking at me in my wedding dress?" However, her husband's parents were constantly at odds with my sister. They were living together, after all. Her husband, who should have been her protector, was too busy with his flights and rarely at home. Bored, my sister started going out and having fun. This infuriated her in-laws. Eventually, even her husband got fed up and kicked her out. Her second husband was a younger man she met at a bar where she used to work. He had his own business and seemed like a quiet guy. It was easy to imagine my sister bossing him around. At first, they were really in love, too. But then, money started disappearing from the store's safe. Only the couple had the keys. Her husband, being a bit timid, couldn't bring himself to suspect my sister at first. He tried to ignore it, hoping things would sort out, but eventually, over $20,000 went missing. That's when he finally confronted her. "What? Are you blaming me? What if it's just a miscalculation or something?" My sister brazenly brushed it off. When confronted like that, her husband became anxious. But it turned out Linda was indeed the one taking the money. Her husband had resorted to installing surveillance cameras. There was footage of my sister sneaking to the safe at night. The scene of her taking the money was captured perfectly. He agreed not to involve the police if she returned the money. Of course, he also demanded a divorce. And so, my sister's second marriage ended in failure. Now, she's living with her third husband, a carpenter with a rough temperament. My parents hoped this time it would work out. After all, they were the ones who paid back the money Linda took from the previous husband's safe, plus alimony. When things are good between them, they're really good, but both my sister and her current husband are hot-tempered and strong-willed. So, their fights are pretty intense. They've been reported several times for loud arguments in their rental apartment. And today, my sister started talking about contemplating her third divorce. Well, there's not much I can do about it. Once she's made up her mind, she just plows ahead. But oddly enough, she seemed really happy talking about divorce. Amy, you got divorced too, so we're really sisters after all. We actually get along well. Unbelievable. It was just creepy. I can't make any sense of what you're saying, sis. Her eyes flashed dangerously. It was an unpleasant look. Listen, the reason I'm getting divorced is that I've found someone new who loves me. We've promised to be together. I was speechless. A fourth marriage? Unbelievable. I couldn't fathom why anyone would want to be with a woman who doesn't do housework, spends money recklessly, and could have been involved in a theft if not for the police not getting involved. I played along. Is that so? You've always been popular. My sister seemed thrilled by my words. She laughed loudly. That's right. Men can't stay away from me. Her heavily made-up face twisted. I was horrified. I just wanted her to leave. Eventually, she said, well, if the kids aren't here, I guess there's nothing to do, leaving with those cryptic words. I was utterly exhausted. Being around her feels like having my energy drained. It's hard to believe she's my sister by blood. That night, when Emma came home, she entered the living room with a pale face. Mom, there's a wedding invitation. Her voice was shaking. Emma is usually not the type to show much emotion, but her level of distress was unusual. It's from Dad. What? I was speechless. My ex-husband, Mike, getting remarried? And he's inviting me to the ceremony? How much more can he insult me? I raised my eyebrows and looked at the invitation. No way! I exclaimed in disbelief. The invitation was from Mike and Linda. Those two are getting married? So, the man my sister wanted to marry was my ex-husband? And Mike left me to marry my sister? Unforgivable. How could they do this to me? I've always been devoted to my husband. And I've never caused any trouble for my sister. I crumpled the invitation in my hand. My pride was shattered. Then the phone rang. The caller ID showed it was my sister. Amy, have you figured it out yet? I'm marrying your ex-husband, Mike. I stole him away. My sister always coveted what belonged to others, especially mine. And now she's reached out for my husband. Let me tell you. I took a part-time job at Mike's company. Of course, pretending not to notice anything. She began to explain how she got close to my husband. Sounding incredibly proud. Mike always eats at the company cafeteria, right? So I invited him to go out for lunch. Mike is so serious and straight-laced. It was amusingly easy to win him over. My hands trembled as I held my smartphone. Everything went dark before my eyes. I finally understood why my ex-husband, Mike, didn't explain the reason for our divorce. Then, I flashed back to that boyfriend from my middle school days. I never imagined I'd face something like this as an adult. My sister was probably imagining my reaction over the phone. Laughing in delight. Her voice sounded too pleased. I've always been annoyed. Annoyed that you married an elite like Mike. I had a successful first marriage, you know? But I was driven out by my mother-in-law. Why always me? So, I wanted you to feel the same way I did. I almost yelled at her. But I managed to restrain myself. That's because you were disliked by your in-laws, right? You were always out playing around. My sister's voice lost its amusement. Humph, she snorted. Shut up. Anyway, make sure you come to our wedding. I'll show you how happy we are. You'll see how much Mike adores me. She hung up after getting her point across. I collapsed, sitting down shakily. Emma rushed to me as Jack entered through the front door. Mom, are you okay? My pale face. Emma rubbing my back. Seeing this scene suddenly, Jack was startled. What's wrong, Mom? Did something happen? I disclosed the content of the recent phone call to both of them. Usually calm and kind Emma and even-tempered, rational Jack had complex expressions on their faces. I can't believe Dad would do something like that. Jack said, nodding. It's unbelievable. I had always tried not to talk about my sister and her antics to my family. I didn't want to think that such a person was my sister, their aunt, connected by blood. But now, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I spilled everything, starting from the harassment I received, to my sister's repeated divorces. Their faces grew more clouded as I spoke. Can't be true, this is too much. Jack grimaced with a look of disgust. Talking about everything made me feel a bit relieved. I thanked my kids for listening. And told them I wouldn't attend the wedding. But then, Emma's eyes sparkled. Wait, we're invited too, right? She was correct. Did Mike really want us there? I'll go in your place, Mom. What? I looked at my son, bewildered. What was he planning to do by attending? We'll attend. Not to celebrate, though. My children smiled reassuringly at my confusion. Don't worry, leave it to us. Jack patted my shoulder. Just relax at home, Mom. My two children reassured me like this. Yet, both my daughter and son exchanged meaningful glances. Despite feeling nervous, I was curious about what they were planning to do. Somewhere inside, there was a feeling of anticipation. I agreed to let them attend the wedding. Mike was remarrying, and for my sister, it was her fourth wedding. I was surprised to hear it would be a lavish affair at a top-tier hotel. Apparently, my sister had insisted on it. Mike, a high-ranking sales director, was expected to become an executive. So, even for a second marriage, he needed to showcase his new wife grandly. Moreover, my sister had arranged for a custom-made wedding dress. I couldn't believe her shamelessness at her age. And I felt pity for Mike, easily manipulated by my sister. It's just like my sister to quickly discard Mike once she's had her way. She only wanted him because he was my husband. My sister always desired what was mine. As they were preparing for the wedding, Emma spoke up. Mom, actually, Dad messaged us last night. He said he wants to take custody of me and Jack. What? I gasped in shock. Was he trying to take my children away from me now? That's ridiculous, we're not babies anymore. Jack scoffed dismissively. My sister married several times but was never blessed with children. I always thought it was clear that any child of hers would be unhappy. And I believed God understood that too. But I never imagined she would set her sights on my child. That's why she was so eager to meet. It all makes sense now. Don't worry, we'll never go to her house, they said to me before giving me a gentle hug. See you later. What happened after that? Hours later, when the kids came home, they had big smiles on their faces. They showed me a video they had recorded, saying it was something great. It was truly a refreshing sight. A top-class hotel's wedding venue. My sister, in a gaudy wedding dress, regardless of her age, was having a blast. I'm so happy you two came to the ceremony. Call me Mom, she said in a sickeningly sweet voice. Emma looked like she was about to throw up in disgust. Meanwhile, Mike sat in a corner of the room, making a grim face and smoking a cigarette. Jack was struck by a surprising realization. It was the first time Jack had seen his father smoke. He seemed irritated, constantly jiggling his leg in a nervous manner. He was somewhat intimidating. He didn't look like a groom at all. Feeling uncomfortable, the children left the bridal suite early. Then the ceremony started. The overly excited bride, Linda. The stoic groom, Mike. It was a bizarre wedding. The guests all had tense expressions on their faces. Then came the reception. My sister, in a good mood, was being overly affectionate with Mike. Seeing the bride, over 50, act this way, the guests didn't know where to look, and Mike, conscious of his colleagues watching, pushed Linda away. Then the MC tried to lighten the mood. It's time for the bride to change her dress. The moment arrived for my sister to exit. As soon as the door closed, Jack made his way to the stage. Everyone looked confused. Congratulations on your marriage, Dad and Aunt Linda. The guests thought it was a congratulatory speech from a son. He calmly took a sip from his glass. But what he said was completely unexpected. Between the two of you, 6 marriages, that's not normal. Oh, I get it. Aunt Linda, you snatched your sister's husband. That's pretty low. You were never normal, were you? The room instantly buzzed with whispers. Most of the guests were unaware of this fact, so their reaction was natural. Today, I'm gonna read a bit of my mom's diary. Turns out, my mom is the woman whose husband was stolen by today's bride. Funny thing, the bride is actually her sister. Linda came and told me she was marrying my ex-husband. 6 months ago, I was forced into a divorce by my husband, who she always got along with. So that's what it was all about. Mike turned pale as he listened. My sister applied for a part-time job at Mike's company, pretending it was a coincidence to get close to him. She then frequently seduced Mike and lied to him, saying I was bad-mouthing him on social media. I don't even use social media. But according to the sister, there were posts insulting Mike. It turns out she created a fake account in my name. Sadly, Mike believed all this. Mike started trembling in his seat at the groom's table. So, I was deceived after all. When Linda, the bride, came back after changing her outfit, nobody applauded her. This time she was wearing a gold dress with a tiara, which looked pretty ridiculous. Linda, expecting a round of applause, was smiling broadly, but got irritated by the cold reception at the venue.
What's with everyone? Why are you all looking at me like that?
Confused and getting angry, she didn't understand what was happening. But the revenge didn't end there. Next, Emma stood up. Aunt Linda, we have a heartfelt present for you. Linda, surprised, said, huh? And looked around nervously. At Jack's signal, the doors opened and a group of men entered. All dressed casually. And clearly not guests. Starting from the right, Aunt Linda's first husband. He's remarried now and has become an executive at his workplace. The next man is her second husband. After divorcing Linda, his new book became a huge hit. He's got a lovely child with his new wife and lives in a brand new mansion. At first, the sister was shocked, but as Emma continued, her face turned bright red. She clenched her teeth so hard, it seemed like we could hear them grinding. My children smiled at their aunt's reaction. And finally, the third husband, a carpenter. The sister sharply interrupted. That's just someone who used to get into trouble a lot. He'll never be successful. I win. But Jack laughed and gently chided her. Aunt Linda, that's not very nice. Emma nodded in agreement and continued. The third husband was a carpenter. But he remarried the daughter of his boss, who owns a nationwide construction company. He's now the vice president, busy and successful. We hope you find happiness too, Aunt Linda. The sister turned pale. She'd underestimated her second and third husbands. Not knowing they had become far more successful than her. She was in shock. The sister's ex-husbands all had gained status and fame. Despite their casual attire, they appeared dignified. They didn't say anything, but it was clear they pitied the sister.
What, now? I'm so frustrated to see them so successful.
In a fit of anger, she slammed the bouquet she was holding onto the floor. Her hysteria was uncontrollable. Mike will just end up as a sales manager, right? He was Amy's husband, after all. Ah, what a mistake. There was a loud bang as she slammed her fist on the table.
Don't mess around.
Mike yelled, his face turning red. It seemed like he had reached his limit. Because that's how it is, right? Does that mean you can become a vice president? Build a mansion for me? It was a chaotic scene. The bride and groom started arguing. The wedding guests wore shocked expressions that they shouldn't have. What's more, many of Mike's colleagues from the company were among the guests. Career advancement was no longer possible. And there was a significant chance that they might not even have a place at the company. We have the final touch. My sister screamed.
Enough already. Just because you're all doing well, don't get carried away. I even thought about making you my child.
The children firmly rejected their sister's words with, absolutely not. Another person was brought in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Linda's new boyfriend. Linda has been dating him while being in a relationship with the groom, Mike. However, I think the day when he becomes her fifth husband is approaching. The man referred to as the new boyfriend suddenly garnered everyone's attention. And he seemed like a timid guy. With a pale face, he quickly left the scene as if fleeing. That was a momentary thing. The sister ran after the new boyfriend, shouting, "Wait!" Watching everything unfold, Mike lost his temper. He grabbed my sister's arm and shouted,
How much longer do you think you can make a fool out of me? We're getting a divorce. And I'll be claiming alimony from you. My position at the company is finished, and I'll be seeking damages as well.
Amidst the chaos, the host scrambled, and the wedding guests, fed up, started leaving one by one. All that was left was my sister Linda, whose outfit sparkled needlessly. Mike, with his hair disheveled and his tuxedo crumpled. Seeing this, Emma and Jack high-fived each other, exclaiming, "We did it." Naturally, Mike and my sister got divorced on the spot. Mike didn't back down from his stern stance, while the sister cried and begged, fearing the alimony she'd have to pay. Mike confronted my sister Linda with intense anger.
How could you lie to me so much about Amy?
Then, unexpectedly, he started to cry. Emma and Jack, who were still around observing, were taken aback. I was wrong. I did terrible things to Amy. She probably won't forgive me, but I need to apologize somehow. The children exchanged glances. He had been a good father from the beginning. He had just been manipulated by Linda, the sister. We couldn't go back to their original family. But the children believed they should convey Mike's apology to me. The ceremony ended, and the children returned home. Laughter echoed from the entrance, a bright sound that was a relief to hear. Just hearing it made them feel relieved.
Welcome back, how did it go?
The triumphant look on Emma and Jack's faces said it all. They took turns showing me the recorded footage, which left me shocked and oddly satisfied. The extent of my sister Linda's awfulness still left me speechless. While watching the video of Linda being confronted, the kids explained everything that happened. Once things settled down, Emma spoke up.
Actually, Dad is outside. He wants to apologize to you, Mom.
This unexpected twist left me bewildered. But then Jack chimed in supportively.
Dad doesn't expect forgiveness, but he really wants to apologize. Why not hear him out?
Having such wonderful children by my side, I mustered the courage to meet Mike. He looked haggard and disheveled outside, understandably, having come straight from the chaotic wedding. I remembered hearing that the executives from his company who attended the wedding left with bitter expressions. That's when he realized his career prospects were ruined.
Amy, I was a fool. I'm truly sorry.
For me, that was enough. He was a victim of my sister, too.
Linda will pay me alimony, and I'll give it all to you.
I nodded slowly. You, too, were misled by my sister. Goodbye, Mike. He reached for my arm. Can we start over again? He asked. The kids were visibly shocked. This was unexpected. That's impossible, goodbye. I closed the front door. Mike stood there for a while, before finally walking away. Meanwhile, Linda, the root of all this trouble, was deserted by both Mike and her new boyfriend, now leading a miserable life. She was fired from her part-time job and struggled as a convenience store clerk, often getting scolded by the manager. The young staff mocked her, and she frequently had hysterical outbursts. To make ends meet, she even tried working at a nightclub. But customers always requested someone else, preferring younger women. At the club, too, she worked with a strained face and clenched teeth, knowing she had alimony to pay. This was likely to be her life for quite some time. As for me, I live a peaceful and happy life with my kids. Jack's doing well with his law exams, and we look forward to his future. They promised to always cherish me.
I couldn't be happier.